Cutting down trees is a controversial activity, especially where big foreign investors are involved. And Canadian public opinion, at least among those who know or care, is deeply divided. Do you know what loggers do?
What loggers do?
Yeah.
They cut down trees.
I couldn't say. A logger to me is more sort of.
Faller. Anybody who brings the trees down is a faller. No, seriously,
You know the stuff. How do you know that?
Because my stepdad works in the horrible forest industry, which is corrupting our province.
Is it?
You know what? Loggers built this province.
You know that you do one of the most dangerous jobs in the world, don't you?
Yeah, apparently, yeah. And I love every bit of it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a good thing?
Yeah.
It kind of is and it kind of isn't, because like logging is
Clear
like a
cutting
big
isn't
resources, but at the same time it's like cutting down trees, so it's bad. Pros and cons.
It's still the largest industry in British Columbia, billions of dollars a year. It's what keeps the highways and hospitals and healthcare programs and all that going, and we cannot support this province on a shift to tourism in a couple of years. So we're going to have to be reliant on old-growth forest harvesting for a while.
I'm not against logging. I own 4 chainsaws. I have a tree climbing business. My problem is with the cutting of primeval forests, and they are so precious. When do we become rational? When there's 20% left, or when there's 15% left, or when there's 10% left? When does my voice start becoming rational, that we say that we have to save the world's primeval forests? They're very valuable.
Irwin is an environmental activist. When I met him, he was trying to stop the provincial government putting a car park in a stunningly beautiful area of woodland called Cathedral Grove. It is an astonishing place, almost spiritual. Lowland virgin forest, most of which has now disappeared as the loggers work ever higher up the valleys. Cathedral Grove is so beautiful that large numbers of the public want to come and see it, hence the need for a larger car park. Irwin says that he's not against logging or loggers, it's just the way it's done today. In fact, he told me, most of the lowland forests had been used by the locals for thousands of years before the white man came. But the First Nation people did not practice clear felling.
Okay, so what we're looking at here is an example of First Nations ecoforestry. This cedar here is a culturally modified tree, and it was peeled. A big strip of bark was ripped off it when it was about 50 years old, when it was huggable size, and you can see the core here. Now these healing lobes have been rolling across this, and will ultimately they'll meet and sew it right up. If you look down through the forest here, you'll see that nearly every cedar in this forest has had these incredible bark strips.
Why have they done that?
Well, they used the cedar bark for making baskets, for clothes, for all different kinds of things.
To be honest, it looks like mutilation.
Yeah, but you know what? In another 20 years or 30 years, those wounds will be completely healed over, and the tree just takes on its beautiful normal shape.
And yet it still survives.
Yeah, it's just a whole new tree has grown up the side, and you can see this healing callus has almost separated completely from the dead core.
The First Nation people would also burn the core out of the modified trees to make rainproof overnight shelters to be used while out on hunting trips. And yes, the trees continue to thrive. Glenn Dunsworth calls himself an environmentalist, but he is also a pragmatist. He spent many years working for the giant American logging company Weyerhaeuser, trying to encourage the use of variable retention, which basically involves restricting areas of clear-cut to 40 hectares and leaving blocks of trees around stream beds, bear dens and the more environmentally valuable bits of woodland. Glenn is now a freelance consultant, working under contract to the World Wildlife Fund, and is still keen to proselytise on the merits of variable retention.
But you see the difference? I mean, you could feel the differences the minute you come in here.
It's cooler in here.
Cooler.
And damper.
It's damper. You see there's a layer of life, a layer of organisms that have been retained in here that we didn't see out there. This salal. Now this salal is going to come back out there fairly quickly, But this has been retained. What you don't see out there is this moss over top of, this dead and dying material. And that's habitat for slugs and snails and shrews and salamanders. I mean, that's the kind of stuff, if they even if they had that out there, they wouldn't like it because you don't have the cool, moist conditions that are inherent in a patch.
And so when that grows up out there, this reserve of cooler, mossier, damper animals and organisms will be able to move, recolonize out there.
That's the idea. This is the lifeboat that allows the organisms that are here to then recolonize those sites out there when they get to the point where they're recolonizable.
Well, what about the bears and the eagles and the cougars?
They need they need bigger home ranges. They also need a landscape that has a mixture of habitat in it. Places to feed, places to breed, places to live. They're all different places. They can't do it all in one spot. So the mixture is important, not just one habitat type. And I think that's a real key message in variable retention is you got to keep the variable part in. Don't do the same thing everywhere. And that's exactly what we try to do. Is mix it up. Try to keep it as different as we can. The more variety we have in the landscape, the better chance we'll have to get it right. The thing that I don't see very much in here, in terms of missing structure, are snags.
You want it to look tattier than this?
I do. I want it to look messier. Messy is good. From a forest ecology standpoint, messy is good. And the reason we don't have snags in this forest condition yet is because this is still pretty young. This is only 45, 55 years old. It's going to take 80 or 100 years to get some of these trees to a state where they're going to die, and die standing. And that's when they start to gain some real ecological value. So again, patches are important because they allow those time-dependent processes to go on in amongst the stuff that we've already harvested. So you've got these two sort of dynamic elements that are working together, and that's the power of variable retention from an ecological standpoint.
And I have to admit that to my British eye, well accustomed to environments that have been almost wholly created by man, some of the variable retention does look pretty good. Native forest it isn't, but it carries a wide variety of plant and animal life, possibly more diverse than that in old-growth forest. And this is a heresy, I know, but old growth can sometimes feel pretty dank and dark and quiet.